Good morning, everyone from the Great White North. How's everybody doing this morning?
Woohoo!
Woohoo! Good morning. Happy
Excellent.
Saturday.
Deep dark south.
Yes, we've literally got, as the crow flies, we've got thousands of miles between, where Emily and I are at up in northern Canada, all the way down. I think our farthest point south is Carol with yourself and Hank down in Sarasota, Florida area. And I think we could traverse, east and west, as far as Texas and who knows where. But guys, this is our Saturday morning Voices of Health Point that we do every Saturday morning, pretty much without fail, which is, hence our setting here up in Northern Canada. We'll chat on that maybe a little bit more, but you can tell by the beautiful setting with the cottage behind me. And if you could see further behind, there's a beautiful lake. And this is courtesy of a friend of many of us and mentor to many of us, the wonderful Marnie Fondren, who is skirting around here someplace. And so she's around here as well. Anyhow, we are getting rolling here. So for those that are new, Voices of Health Point is where we meet Saturday mornings from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. And we just talk all things health and specifically Health Point, which is what many clients are working through and many coaches are helping those clients work through. For those that don't catch us live or choose not to participate live, then this episode, all episodes are uploaded onto the Voices of Health Point YouTube channel. So you're welcome to catch the episodes there. And, just kind of how we roll here, we usually have a handful of docket items, that is known topics that we're going to cover. And then we roll through those, and then we just kind of open it up to a lot of round robin discussion. And that's, arguably where the real magic happens and the real fun is. So is some known docket items. And as I say this to you, I've got a chipmunk that is about ready to jump up on my leg. He is like not afraid at all. He is like, oh my gosh, he's literally, guys, if you see this chipmunk, all right, come here, guy. Sorry, this is like obviously not planned, guy, but this guy is like right around my feet. You see, this is how we roll here. This is one reason Marnie said, hey, let's make sure we close the screen door because there's a chipmunk that might just want to make his way inside the cottage. Now I see why she says that. Okay, back on track, guys, here. Sorry, it's tough to stay focused as the chipmunk comes through. Hey, Marnie, there was your chipmunk. Okay, guys. So I am going to do the topic on a docket item on visceral fat and why it matters. Some of you might be familiar with that terminology as it relates to the different types of body fat, and I'm going to cover on that. We've got Deb Llewellyn that is going to talk about the health dangers of Ozempic. Wow, that's going to be a interesting one for sure. We've got Carol that is going to talk about zesting up Health Point. That sounds really fun and very important, as you're rolling through, cycles after cycle after cycles. And we've got Laurel that is going to talk about attitude independent of circumstances, which is relevant certainly with Health Point as you will, work to manage your attitude. So looking forward to that, Laurel. And then we've got David that's going to do a kind of a 30-second to a 1-minute shout out, I think on someone that's working through the program. Okay, so let's roll. I'm going to kind of get started with my docket item here and move through that, and then we'll open it up for discussion after my docket item, and then anybody else that wants to. I'm not kidding you guys. This chipmunk is literally at my toes. So if you hear a screech, that's me halfway through my docket item, and we'll see if we can. Do you want to get in here? Oh my gosh, you are like literally touching. Oh my gosh, guys, he just bit my toe. Oh my gosh. All right. On to the docket item. Here we go. Let's grab this. So we're going to talk about, again, the topic of visceral fat. Many people know the term visceral fat, but don't quite understand how it differs from the fat we see in the mirror or feel under the skin. Yet the distinction is critical because while subcutaneous fat affects how we look, visceral fat affects how we live. Subcutaneous fat sits just beneath the skin. It's the soft, jiggly fat you can pinch on your belly, thighs, arms, or buttocks. It's often the target of frustration for those working on their appearance, but in moderate amounts, this type of fat, comparatively speaking, is relatively harmless. Visceral fat is entirely different. It accumulates deep within the abdominal cavity, wrapped around the internal organs like the liver, pancreas, and intestines. It's firm rather than soft, often giving the belly a hard, distended feel. Visceral fat is metabolically active in a harmful way, triggering inflammation, disrupting hormone function, and contributing to serious conditions like insulin resistance, heart disease, and fatty liver disease. To understand how fat expands in the body, we need to look at two key processes: hypertrophy and hyperplasia. Hypertrophy is when individual fat cells grow larger. Imagine a balloon filling with more and more air. This is the body's first response when storing extra energy. Hyperplasia, on the other hand, is when the body creates new fat cells to accommodate the excess. It's cell multiplication rather than just cell expansion. Subcutaneous fat is more likely to grow through hyperplasia. When existing fat cells get full, the body makes more of them. This isn't ideal, but it's relatively safe. It spreads the load across many smaller cells. Visceral fat, by contrast, tends to grow through hypertrophy. The fat cells enlarge dramatically, becoming dysfunctional. They begin to leak inflammatory substances and pour excess fatty acids into the liver via the portal vein. This is why visceral fat is considered so dangerous. It doesn't just store energy, it behaves like a rogue organ. It disrupts blood sugar regulation, floods the body with inflammatory signals, and sets the stage for metabolic diseases. In contrast, subcutaneous fat acts more like a passive storage site. Someone can carry excess subcutaneous fat and still maintain relatively good metabolic health for a time, anyways. Two people with the same waist measurements might be in very different health situations. One may have more subcutaneous fat. The other, with more visceral fat, is likely facing greater internal risk, even if the external appearances seem similar. This becomes especially important when we consider ethnic differences in how fat is stored. Dr. Benjamin Bickman, a metabolic scientist and author of Why We Get Sick, points out that the populations in countries like Singapore and India have some of the highest rates of visceral fat in the world, even though they don't appear obese by traditional visual standards. These populations often carry more fat internally, making them more vulnerable to metabolic disease despite having a quote unquote normal body weight on the scale. This condition is sometimes referred to by the acronym SOFI or SOFI, skinny on the outside, fat on the inside, which Ben Physick also highlights in his 11-minute audio inside the Health Point app. A person may not look overweight, but still have significant visceral fat and face the same health risks. So how can someone know whether they have visceral fat? While some of this can be uncovered during annual medical exams or more advanced imaging, there are other practical ways to get insight. One is simply visual. A tight, protruding belly, especially one that feels hard rather than soft, can be a clue. Another is through modern home body composition scales. Some of the more advanced ones now estimate visceral fat as part of the readout, giving users a rough snapshot of what's going on inside. Then there are mid-level tools like the in-body scan, available in some health clubs, medical offices, and wellness centers. This machine provides a specific visceral fat score. On the in-body scale, a score below 10 is considered healthy and within range. Scores above that suggest elevated risk. These readings, combined with other indicators like waist circumferences, fasting glucose, and triglyceride levels, can paint a fuller picture. And it's important to note, while with some individuals may appear lean and still carry visceral fat, the opposite is also true. When someone carries a lot of subcutaneous fat, it's unlikely that they have zero visceral fat. These two are often connected. In most cases of obesity, both types of fat are present, though in different ratios. So visible body fat often accompanies the hidden kind. Fortunately, visceral fat is responsive to change. It's often the first fat to shrink when someone improves their nutrition, movement, and metabolic health. Strategies like reducing added sugars, lowering insulin levels, walking after meals, managing stress, and building muscle through resistance training all play a role. Tools like continuous glucose monitors, CGMs in other words, help people see real-time patterns that drive fat accumulation, especially around the midsection. Subcutaneous fat may change how a person looks. Visceral fat changes how a person functions. And when it comes to long-term health, energy, and resilience, the fat you can't see is often the one that matters most. Okay, guys, that is it on my docket item. And so if anybody has any questions, comments, thoughts on that topic, I tell you, it's one that I literally have discussions on it numerous times every week. So it's a big deal, and fortunately I think more and more people just in the general populace have heard of this term. So if you bring it up, it's not like they've never heard that before, and but that just kind of goes down a little bit down the rabbit hole on some specifics of that. So if there's any comments, questions, fire away. Otherwise, we'll go to our next docket items.
So comment or question. I know one product, do I have my mic on? Oh,
Yep.
That helps, I believe, with that is the Moro Blood Orange, the Ignite powder.
It does.
Is there any other? Does Muscle Multiplier also help with that?
It would in the context, and I think we touched on this last week, and great question, David. Great point, first of all, on the, we call them the pixie sticks, the blood orange product, delicious. And then on the muscle multiplier, certainly anytime anyone is increasing their lean muscle mass, or on an in-body scan is labeled as SMM, skeletal muscle mass, basically greater muscle fiber strength. Muscles are going to kind of soak up glucose. And so, yes, if you can increase your muscles via the branched chain amino acid product, that we have called muscle multiplier, then that's going to be advantageous for sure. I'm trying to think of some others. When you kind of go down the list of what's occurring, or as you list through some of those chronic diseases that are, the risk of them are elevated as a result of an increase in visceral fat, you could really kind of point to a number of products that could be beneficial on that. Omega-3, is a big one that we often talk about as part of the Health Point package, but that is advantageous in terms of inflammatory issues. But of course, on all of this, and I, none of us that coach this program, and I'm sure clients aren't lost on this either. Supplementation is amazing. Oh, we got Carol. Carol, go ahead and speak so that your microphone.
I'm gonna do a. I was unmuted before. I'm gonna do a product demo on our Excess Moro Orange Ignite.
Excellent. Love it. Man. We are all
so good.
We could just so grab that.
And Eric, I sent you over a picture, but it was very last minute. So I ran it off, and this is just on the back of the box of Ignite. Excess Ignite powder is designed to fire up your workouts, so get a better workout and help you support a healthy metabolism and weight management goal. Formulated with a clinical dose of 400 milligrams of Moro blood orange extract and 3 times the amount of polyphenols found in a navel orange. So there's a lot of health benefits to it, and our wonderful Sharon Webb did a great presentation on that a number of weeks ago on our Monday night, and it comes from the Mount Etna region of Italy, and there is an extract from the Moro orange that they pull from there that is very, very rich for this product. But I just wanted to do that cute little demo, first of all, because I had it sitting there that I was going to be doing it when I got home anyway. I thought, well, I'm just going to grab it. And it is very tasty. Hank likes to put it in a little water. I personally prefer to just split open the side, and he split open very easily. Dump it in. Do not breathe. Do not talk. Just salivate with it till it turns to a liquid, and it will immediately break down and just go dissipate into your system, and it's wonderful. So I just wanted to, sorry I didn't get that picture over to you earlier, but I thought that might help.
That was even better. I'm glad that, you know, doing it that way gave the opportunity to do that awesome product demo. I mean, nothing more real than just stopping on your power walk and down the hatch with that product. So
Well, and the real point of it, Eric, that Sharon brought out so well is that after, I think it's 6 months, it takes a while, but after 6 months, the New England Journal stated the findings were that, and I don't remember what degree of visceral fat it's reduced, but it's a substantial. So it's definitely, but it's a product that you take on a daily basis and don't expect results right away. But at the end of 6 months, it will definitely improve your visceral fat, of course, along with diet and everything else too. So
right. No, that's great. So there you have it, guys. So, you know, if you're, well, whether you're active in a 6-week cycle or not, and, you know, clearly, you know, Carol, you know, you're no need to be active in and haven't been active in a 6-week cycle for a while. You know, you're in lifetime maintenance mode, but still the value of that product still remains. But certainly if you're in a 6-week cycle, you know, check with your coach, you know, maybe look to add that product to your order, to what you're supplementing. These are all tools that can come alongside and assist you in your goals, in your health point goals. And that window of time of 6 months, I mean, you know, we've grown so used to surprising, you know, I say surprisingly fast results. And I say surprisingly from the context of most clients, they're like, holy cow, what, this is awesome. You know, I'm losing weight. I mean, I was just recently having a conversation with someone that was used to a cadence of 3 pounds per month. And no,
wow.
nothing wrong with that. You know, I'm talking before she learned of Health Point, you know, was used to, and I don't want to say excited, but was okay with 3 pounds per month. And, you know, in Health Point, again, this will depend on whether or not you're a 6'7" male or a, you know, 5'1" female, you know, and kind of your starting point. But certainly in Health Point, we're talking about during the 4-week portion of the 6-week cycle, you know, 2-3 pounds per week on average over time. So, you know, but my point with that is, you know, with what you're saying, Carol, where, you know, they are pointing to studies of over the course of 6 months. I think that is a very, you know, if somebody can't kind of like, you know, be patient for 6 months as they're working through the changes in their health, then maybe, you know, they need to just kind of look at some other things in terms of their attitude, which Laurel, we will talk about that a little bit, right? Or you will. So kind of queuing you up a little bit ahead of time. Well, in fact, Laurel, well, first of all, anybody else has any comments or questions on visceral fat, and we can always, you know, switch around to it later in the program. But Laurel, if you are ready, and speaking of attitude independent of circumstances, maybe this would be a wonderful time for you to speak on that.
It's always a good time to talk about attitude.
Right.
Well, Carol just mentioned this today when I sent my logs into her, and you know, I've not had through this whole Health Point thing, I've not had a normal week. I don't think in terms of other issues going on, and I would just say that you know, the one thing I could do was Health Point. I mean, with all the things that were the doctors couldn't figure out this and that. And just lately, like 3 weeks ago, I screwed up, had an accident and got big wounds, open wounds on my legs. And so they've got them compressed, wrapping and stuff. And it makes it hard to walk. We've had 95 degrees all the time. So I switched, and my other go-to plan B was always to get in the pool or do some walking in the pool or something like that. But I can't get anything wet, all that wrapping down there. So now today I'm on the seated elliptical in the air conditioning. Spent a lot of time in the air conditioning, but all that to say that in the 3 weeks, this particular issue, along with the other stuff for the whole, I've still lost weight, since January. And so Health Point works. I mean, I tell Carol all the time, I go, Cal, just think when I finally don't have any issues and I can actually get as many steps in as you're supposed to. And, the eating thing is fine. Although times like this in my previous life would have given me all kinds of reasons to do comfort eating, because it's can be pretty depressing when things aren't going right. And if there's people out there, if coaches have people that are getting ready for surgery or maybe have health challenges, and I guess we all do in some respects, but it still works. And if you don't do it perfect, I mean, ideally, when I finally can do everything I'm supposed to, I think, my everything will just fall off of me, all the extra weight. But it still works, regardless of what other people may think. Health Point is seems to be a sound program that works regardless of whether you can cross all your T's and dot all your I's on the program, the parts of the program that you're supposed to be doing. So that's it. Just wanted to say that.
I love that. And first, and I know you've shared this before, so I feel comfortable asking it, but I see you from time to time, here like on our Saturdays. I don't know with the rest of you guys, but boy, can't you just see the difference in Laurel's, like jawline and so forth visually? If you could share how much you've lost so far on the program.
Well, let's see. I try to take it, a few pounds at a time because, if you look at the whole thing, but overall, since I started trying to lose weight, let's see, I started with the first program in January. I've lost, I think I hit the 60-pound mark the other day.
Wow.
And, I'm not sure from where. I mean, I got no clothes that fit me anymore. And I'm only buying 2 tops and 2 bottoms because I don't want to spend a boatload of money on stuff, so it's just funny. I got to hold back the guest room. We can't have any guests because the bed is piled with clothes that no longer fit. Because when I found something that fit before, I'd buy like 5 of them because it fit, and it looked good. Okay, let's buy 5, one in every color, So I got clothes back there, and some woman's shelter is going to benefit largely because I'm going to take it all over there. But anyway, yeah, 60 pounds, and I still go up and down. I went up a little bit today, like a half a pound or something. But yeah, I've just learned now not to get, to have an attitude independent of the circumstance, because it's all going to work its way out. You just have to kind of stay the course and not panic about like I said, if someone's having surgery. I mean, we have lots of people on here with stories that have surgery and they came back and got back on the program. And so anyway, I think that's a good reason for a lot of people, or they think it's a good reason to not start, to not continue. And I just like I said, it was the one thing I have control of, what goes in my mouth. And the logging gives me a sense of a schedule or a routine, and I'm not a routine person, so it's been good for me. So
Yeah, I'm curious, if anybody else has any observations on this too, but what I'm hearing, Laurel, is, in the midst of the things that are uncontrollable, right? There's uncontrollable for your leg injury, it was uncontrollable about, this and that. I'm almost hearing it's like almost a safe space of something that you can feel a measure of control. And not only, of course, in that control are you getting the benefits of continually improving your health, but also just in this swirl of pop up uncontrollables, you've got this safe haven of kind of a routine, a cadence, a check-in, a logging, maybe reducing decision fatigue because you know what you're going to eat, you know what you're not going to eat. Does that kind of play into kind of this attitude independent of circumstances to be able to have that kind of health point be the one thing that you can kind of control, or at least certain elements of it?
Well, I think that's right because yeah, I'm not a routine person. I mean, I'm the person in 30 years, I don't think I drove home from work the same way twice in a row, ever. I just didn't. I don't like it. And Hank used to go nuts when I say, no, I don't have a routine, but that was me. But this is it's yeah, it's an anchor. Or like I said
Mm.
last time, it's a curb. It's not an anchor. It's a curb. You're driving on the road, you can go in this lane or that lane or down the middle if you want, just don't go off the curb, you know? And if you do, you'll realize it pretty quick. And I think the other thing I said to Carol quickly on my text was this morning, I'm looking forward to walk and talk just so I have some company because I've had to keep my legs propped up above my hips, you know, for like as much as possible. So it's the circulation and it heals faster. And the gal said they're healing great. I was just at the wound center yesterday and she said, oh, these are not the legs of a 71-year-old, you know, and they're healing so good. Well, that's great. She goes, but we got to wrap them again. And oh my God. So I learned a lot about how the skin works and all that stuff. But yeah, it definitely gives me an anchor. And I think every doctor I've seen for all these bizarre stuff, symptoms I have in my hands, stuff, when they question what I eat, and I say, am I doing this to myself by losing weight? They go, how are you losing weight? I tell them, they go, no, keep it up. That's perfect. That's exactly right. Don't change that. So at least, like I said, that's the one thing I got control of. And so that's what I'm
Wonderful.
doing. And so now I'm on the elliptical, which is why I know I'm getting winded because anyway,
That's
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 all.
great. And the adaptation and figuring things out, getting hit with something, kind of figuring out a plan B, or I think at this point maybe it sounds like you might be at a plan D, E, or F at this point. You're
Yeah.
beyond plan B, but
I'm gonna, if I
uh,
get to the end, I'll go back the other way.
nice,
Hey,
nice.
Eric,
Yes,
it's
Kathy.
Kathy. Hey, so, okay, so kudos, Laurel. I gave you a floating heart earlier. You
Yeah,
are
I saw that.
so amazing and you so deserve that floating heart. I mean, you're right. Everything you said was spot on. It's so great to hear it from others and people that are in the journey for sure. I do have some clients who have kind of intimated the same thing to me and they're not ready. So maybe I'll see if they'll listen to this. Maybe they will be, maybe they won't. They'll know, but I just thought about it when you were saying everything again. And it comes back to what Nicole's saying so many times in those preambles: progress, not perfection. And you've definitely got the progress. And like you say, once you get rid of all the obstacles, then you'll have the perfection. But you don't have to have the perfection with this program. So that's what makes it so perfect, for lack of a better term. So I just want to
Well, and to
say,
people who haven't started, like you said, if you got people that haven't started, I guess I would just say is if I hadn't lost the 60 pounds, I'm telling you right now, I would be very depressed and I would be eating stuff. I mean, I just know I would have because that's your go-to, or that's what my go-to when things weren't going well. So anyway, don't
well,
wait, just get started.
so
That's a
anyway,
great.
so thanks for sharing and so proud of you. Keep it up.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, and just a final, I guess, point on this, or at least a final point that I'll make is just that last thing that you mentioned there, Laurel, is that imagine if you had this injury, this wound on your legs, and you were 60 pounds heavier, and therefore your metabolic health and so forth would be in a totally different. I wonder how you would be healing. I wonder about how you would be feeling. Well, you already stated some of that. And I think that's important. Sometimes, there's this concept called the trans-theoretical model of change. We've talked about it a bit on here before. And if somebody is not like, and this isn't just health point, this is just life. We all, even those that have kind of health point figured out and dialed in, there might be other areas of their life. I know I certainly have other areas in my life where I still need to make change. And if somebody is low on that trans-theoretical model of change, that is, they're in a contemplative mode or a pre-contemplative mode or a denial mode, sometimes if they're able to just linger, or if they're able to work with somebody that just, they're not ready for action, but if they can kind of internalize, what is it going to be like if I do? What is it going to be like if I don't? And that's why I'm reflecting on this, Laurel, because, this wound on your legs happened. And I don't know, we don't know the arc of time, but let's just presume it would have happened anyways, whether you had done Health Point and lost 60 pounds so far or not. And, if somebody can have if they're in that denial or pre-contemplative, I'm not ready to take action type of a mode, if they can just, things happen in life, things happen. You get an injury, you get something happened to your leg or something like that. Life happens. And the question is, are you in a state where that is really going to take you down a very difficult path in your life, with difficulty healing, maybe a cascading? We've talked about that on here. I know, Carol, you've talked about, when people break a hip and go into the hospital, it's not the hip that ends up often leading to death. It's that they're in the hospital, they're immobilized, they get pneumonia, and and so forth. And that's, so to do things or consider in your mind, when these things happen, we don't wish them on us, but sometimes it's no fault of our own. And Laurel, I don't know how you suffered the injury to your leg, but let's just say that, these things happen. We all know that these things happen. And the question is, are you going to be able to kind of recover, let that wound heal, rebound, and, have a nice pursuit of the different chapters in your life? Or is that going to be something that trips you into a journey in your life that, maybe is you never recover from it? And, you can have years or decades of decline that happen from something that is simply because you weren't as healthy and resilient. Our bodies are incredibly, you cut yourself, it repairs itself, whether you like it or not. It's amazing what our body can do, but imagine if it couldn't do that. And if you're metabolically unhealthy, there's many things that your body cannot do in the optimal way. So if you're somebody that is in that pre-contemplative mode, kind of stiff arming things, saying, I'm not ready, just weigh that out. Things happen in life. And, are you going to meet it with health, or are you going to meet it with disease, a diseased body? And, and, and this isn't, make anybody feel like, or guilty or anything else like that. It's just I think it pays to consider. And it's not just in health. We talk about that in finances too, right? Somebody gets, if something goes bad in their that stuff happens sometimes, right? A refrigerator goes out or something like that. Does that put you into a tizzy for 3 months, or do you have the financial resources to be able to just handle that unexpected expense and move on and have a quality of life? So big topics here, really big topics.
I do have to say, on behalf of Laurel and others, but we're talking about Laurel right now, that from day one, the journaling and being accountable has been absolutely perfect. And I've mentored, coached a lot of people over the years, and some will just come on and they'll be successful because of that very thing. They just sell out and say, I'm going to get it done, and things happen. They happen to everyone. And that's why Laurel said, well, I don't want this to be a pity party. No, it's not a pity party. It's a learning process. This is what you're learning, how resilient. And Eric, you said it so perfect, how resilient the body is and how much it wants to heal. Trust me, guys, the body loves Health Point. Now, it might balk in the very beginning, the first couple of weeks, if you've loaded up on sugar and processed foods. It's going to balk because it doesn't know what the dickens is going on. But once it decides that you've taken control, the body loves Health Point. And the more you journal, the more, like Laurel said, you get into, that's why the community is so important. Like she said, man, I just wanted to get on with the community and talk to people. I think this is so helpful. This and Monday nights, these are so helpful to folks because they realize stuff that's going on, but it's always better for somebody else, not their coach, but somebody else to say, hey, you know what? This is what I realized. This stuff happened, it's going to happen to everybody, but boom, I just decided, and what they learned from it. And that speaks, it's like we say stories. Stories of real live happenings are what sells and continues to sell the Health Point program to folks that they can do it. Not that sell the program that they can do it. That they can do it is the big one-liner afterwards, because most people that start Health Point have started a dozen other things and failed. And that's why they come in doubtful. And so that they can do it. Stories like that is where, and that's why we do that on Monday nights. It's the stories. The second half is the stories to help people believe they can do it and to continue on. So back to you, Eric.
Excellent. Yeah, great stuff. Well, thank you, Laurel. Such a fabulous topic, attitude independent of circumstances. And thank you so much. And thank you everyone that is added to that docket item. And moving around the horn on the docket items, Deb Llewellyn, and we've gathered a handful of times some wonderful stuff. I know David and Chris Dassow have been have kind of queued you up with some really amazing things. And this morning, I understand that you have some information about Ozempic. So Deb, if you are there and unmuted and available.
I am. And I would first like to say how much Laurel is an inspiration to me. Thank you, Laurel. I'm going to talk specifically about Ozempic, not the other GLP-1 drugs. And I guess because I originally thought that I would have to take a drug like that because I was not losing weight, I am now bombarded in my email with all these things on these weight loss drugs because I'm opposed to taking drugs. I know you need them for your health in certain instances, but I didn't want to be dependent on something. So this kind of ties with what you were talking about, Eric. There are a number of negatives about Ozempic, including pancreatitis, kidney, vision loss, especially for people that are actually diabetic, gastrointestinal. But the way that it ties in with your topic was, what is skinny fat? And I can say from being a serial dieter that I probably fell into this category. And it talks about there's this thing called skinny fat where you're skinny but have no muscle mass, and that's not healthy. This phenomenon has become a recurring thing among Ozempic patients who are using the drug off-label for weight loss. People are essentially starving themselves. They end up being nutritionally deficient. It's this constant struggle between eating protein and making sure you're meeting your nutritional requirements and then taking the drug that doesn't allow you to eat. So people utilize the drug to mask unhealthy eating habits because the theory is staying calorie deficient will result in weight loss even if you're eating a greasy hamburger or fries. This only further fueling the skinny fat trend and wreaking havoc on your internal health. When you're on it, you don't feel hungry. So then when you do eat, you can basically eat and still quote unquote be skinny because you're eating so little, even if it's a cheeseburger, and you're not going to break the bank. This can lead to unhealthy muscle loss or bone loss. When you restrict your calories, you don't eat well, you don't exercise, and now you're losing lean muscle mass. Strong muscles contribute to osteoporosis prevention, joint protection, bone growth, and better balance. A study by the JAMA Network found that taking these GLP-1 drugs led to decreased muscle mass and increased bone mineral density. As Best Life previously reported, the AARP estimates that for each pound of weight you lose, 25% will be lost bone or muscle mass. For these reasons, and this is in my age group, for these reasons, doctors often urge patients 65 and older not to use Ozempic, as a dramatic drop in weight can expedite the risk of bone loss. Significant weight loss, especially over a short period of time, can also contribute to a decrease in bone density, which may put older adults at increased risk of bone fractures or exacerbate pre-existing conditions such as osteoporosis. So then it concludes with, basically it's just saying, and it's not really a drug. This is the other part. It says, according to Moon, this person that wrote the art, there are peptides that are naturally occurring in your body. They work by delaying gastro-emptying, which means instead of food coming out of your stomach over the span of 6 to 8 hours, it slows down to 12 to 18. If you are overweight, if you are diabetic, the medications are great. They do what they do. The problem becomes when people are getting these medications prescribed and taking them without being monitored. So I am so thankful for the Health Point, because I know a diet to me now, in reflection, a diet is a means to an end. So you're on it, you have a goal, but there's no underpinning. The habits that we develop with Health Point are helping us to create daily habits that will improve our health over the long haul. And that's basically it.
Wow. Geez, that was so fantastic, Deb. And I want to jump all over this one on just added commentary and stuff, but I'll open it up first because there's so much value in what you are covering here, Deb, and you covered it so well, but let me open it up to others. Anybody have any other thoughts or comments for Deb?
Great job. Another Hank Zampa researcher in the crowd.
Yeah.
Deb sends David and I these articles and Hank, the three of us, and they're so good. They're so good. And I read that one and I thought, oh, she's just got to share that because everybody can benefit from it. There is, and I think we might be able to get it, a walk and talk that we originally got. I'll see if I can find it. And the whole walk and talk, excuse me, I'm going to stop here. The whole walk and talk is all people that were on lap band, which is the drug of, 20 years ago. Everybody was getting lap bands and everybody was getting bariatric surgery. That's how Health Point emerged, was from a bariatric clinic many, many, many years ago, before we had license to it. And excuse me. I lost my train of thought. But anyway, these articles are so great. I lost my train of thought, so I'm going to turn it back over to you, Eric.
Sure. Well, jump back in, and when you kind of regained what you were thinking through, gosh, let me grab a focus on my response. And you heard the stat that Deb pointed to about in this weight loss that upwards of 25% of it is not fat. Let me just categorize it as that. Up to 25% of that, according to that article, and I've heard similar numbers, is not fat. So to be clear, let's say somebody has, let's just do easy numbers and just start with 100 pounds to lose. If they are successful, quote unquote, successful with their weight loss using a GLP-1 drug such as this, what this article is pointing out that Deb was reading is that is not 100 pounds of fat loss, right? That is maybe 75 pounds and maybe even less than that, but let's just say 75 pounds of fat loss. What's the other weight loss? What's the other pounds? It's muscle, it's bone. And we've talked about this on this program and I've heard notable doctors in this space that predict that in the coming 5 years, maybe 10 years, we're going to have a secondary health epidemic of twisted joints, breakages,
Wow.
falls and so forth. And why is that? Because if somebody loses 100 pounds and 25 or more pounds of that was a loss of muscle, then what the other part of this is if many of them will not continue to take this drug for the rest of their life, they will at some point, and I think the average is around a couple of years, stop taking this. It could be a financial reason. It could be just the irritation with having to take it and the method of taking it. But let's just say that they stop taking it and they gain that weight back on. Are they going to gain back the same proportion of pounds? Are they going to gain back just 75 pounds of fat and another 25 pounds of muscle? No, no. And that's the other part in this article that I picked up on, as Deb was talking about, according to, I think it was the AARP, where they're recommending in those age groups, to be very cautious of this. Why? Because particularly as you age, it's even harder to regain lean muscle mass. So just picture somebody, they lose 100 pounds, 25 pounds of that has been muscle. Now they gain, let's say 100 pounds back, but it's not 25 pounds of muscle and 75 pounds of fat. What is it? It's 100 pounds of fat. So now they're back up to the weight that they were at, except they're worse off because they're, years older and they are weaker. They have less lean skeletal muscle mass. They have less ability to recover if they slip on a slippery step, or if they trip going down a hillside, or they stub their toe on a crack in the cement, or any number of things that happen. They go to recover and they don't have the lean muscle mass, the strength to do so. So what happens? They snap, they break, they twist. And so the prediction by a lot of leading people in this space is that we've gone through this wave that hit. I mean, we all saw it hit really strong in 2023, a couple of years ago. It seemed like the entire nation started injecting GLP-1s. It was almost was unbelievable. And it's a huge, huge seller. It's a tremendous profit center for these corporations that are producing this. And so now we have the passage of time. We're 2 years into that, and the data is becoming very clear in terms of the effects on muscle mass. One last thing, and then I'll pause on this. I gather with a group of very respected people in the wellness space. It's there's integrative cardiologists, holistic dentists. There's people like myself in health and wellness coaching. Usually about 10 to 20 of us gather once a month at this one of the individuals' home for beautiful dinner, and we just sit around, have this beautiful dinner, and talk about things. These are people that would kind of stand out from maybe the conventional medical realm, in the sense that they are not just about whipping out prescription pads and writing prescriptions. They are not just about getting a scalpel and cutting. They are very much let's get to the root cause of this. And here's my point. We had this discussion at our last get together, which was like a week ago. I think it was a week ago. And this topic came up. And you would think, given 15 of these leading physicians and health practitioners that are in this holistic space, that they would at least have an awareness of this and maybe be a little bit cautionary on their position on the GLP-1s. Now, you can't paint with a broad brush either way. I'm not saying there's never a time for them, and I'm not saying that there's always a time for them. But my point is in this group of leading professionals in this space, I personally was a little bit taken aback at how many of them were speaking the pros of taking this. And I listened for a little while, because I was curious, what is their perspective? And then I had heard enough, and I just kind of level set the conversation. and basically went through, because one thing that I heard was an individual just saying about the pounds lost, the pounds lost, the pounds lost. I was like, wait a second, define pounds for me. Are you talking pounds of fat, or are you talking pounds of muscle and bone? I mean, if you're going to talk about the benefit in terms of pounds as a professional, you need to dig deeper on that and explain what these pounds are, or we need to, and I just walked through that same discussion. And these are very open-minded. That's why we get together, we hash out ideas. We think these were not people that we were getting into, fisticuffs over dinner, and, getting this big argument or something like that. It was just a robust discussion, but once we had a little bit more of the other side, and again, I wasn't saying there's never a time for this. I mean, maybe there is a time for somebody to maybe get a little bit of help. They were very much proponents of do it in conjunction with coaching, do it in conjunction with something that is going to, you know, build your muscle mass and do so. So they weren't just saying, GLP-1s are a panacea, don't have to do anything else, just take it and life will be great. But if that type of group is that a bit unbalanced in their understanding of the effects of that on society in general, on the individual patients in general, just think about the physicians that are less educated than these people are in terms of looking for root causes and how to change overall metabolic health. And so just bear that in mind when somebody's looking to just say, take this, do your own research. And Deb, thank you for helping us with that research. That was an awesome article.
Well,
So,
Eric, could I ask Deb also to address right after last Monday night, Deb, you sent me that article on the compounding, the
Right.
HERS and the HIM. Could you, pardon me, Eric, but man, I'll tell you what you said and what she said are so relevant to this. Could you just touch real quickly on what that article stated and what those are actually?
Well, yeah, see, that's another thing, because when I was thinking about how to lose weight, I had received information from hers, the group that offers the compounding one. And so those are not real drugs. There's no FDA approval of those. They warn you from doing that and that from using those, because they come with such a greater risk. I don't have that. Okay, here it is. FDA concerns with unapproved GLP-1 drugs. Fraudulent. Oh, they're fraudulent. FDA is aware of fraudulent compounded drugs. They contain false information on the product label. In some cases, the compounding pharmacies identified on the labels of the products do not exist. In other cases, the labels of the fraudulent compounded medicine contain the name of a licensed pharmacy that, based on FDA information as gathered, did not compound these products. So I think with organizations like hers, and there are probably a few others, they're appealing to that deep desire in all of us where we want to look good, we want to look healthy. And so your desire overpowers the reality that maybe you shouldn't take this because it's really not what it's measuring up to be. And I only want to take a drug if I absolutely have to. And so when I started researching these things, and I researched hers in particular, I saw that, maybe this wasn't exactly it's cheaper, of course, and it's offering people that quick fix. And I think that's what basically we're always looking for when you go on a diet. Think about it. It's, you're going to an event, you're going to a wedding, you want to look good for your reunion or something. And you're setting aside everything that's logical about being healthy for the goal of losing the pounds, and not considering the cost to your body by doing an alternative. And so before you go on, and I was happy in the long run, my doctor would not prescribe a GLP-1, and I was frustrated. And that's why I started investigating. And then Carol called me, and thank God Carol called me. I wasn't ready the first time, but I started, the second time you called, and I am eternally grateful because this has shown me that in the past, yes, I lost weight, but what was I doing to my body in the quick fix? I wasn't maintaining health. And as you get older, and if I want to live to be 100, I have to take care of the vessel that I have.
Amen.
Wow.
Amen. And Eric, that I got my quick train of thought, and I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I will try to find the walk and talk where it was led by somebody that did the bariatric. That's where I was going down that trail. They did the bariatric, the lap band, I think it was, and but there's life, like you said, there's life after Ozempic, there's life after bariatric. And unfortunately, they don't teach you about life. They don't teach you anything about healthy habits, exactly what Deb was saying. And what this whole walk and talk group was all people that had had that surgery. And now they're on Health Point and they're learning quality of life for the rest of their life so they don't put it back on. So that was the point I wanted to make on that was
Yeah, this is the I know what you're talking about here, Carol. This is the Australian walk and talk is what you're talking
yes.
about, right? Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just not I don't know what we call this, the American walk and talk. What we're doing right now, it wasn't one of our sessions. It was the yeah, I know which one you're talking about. It was
Yeah.
phenomenal.
If you
The
can
Australian.
extract that, I'd like to get that into the hands of people.
Yeah.
You notice how good I delegate. I
Yeah.
suggested that I delegate, but I think that would be very
It's not
valuable.
in the app either for those that think that they'd find it in the app. I don't
No, it's
believe it
not.
is. Yeah.
Well, we'll go to work on it, you and I, and
Yeah.
somehow we'll try to extract it because I think it's very valuable. But you, a number of months ago, said, there's life after Ozempic. Well, there's life after bariatric. There's life after lap bands. There's life after all of this. But you got to know what that life looks like and how you can. The other thing that occurred to me when you were talking, when Deb was talking about the 75% versus the 25%, does that have a compounding effect? In other words, 100 pounds is a lot to lose. Let's say a person comes on and they lose 25 pounds, and then they solidify and they've lost some muscle mass and they've lost their bone mass. And then they go back again and they lose another 25 or 50 pounds. Is that 25% more? So in fact, if it's broken down by segments, it's more than 25%. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, and just know that just to add to Deb's article, a lot of the research that I've done has used a number of 40%. So, we
Okay.
could say maybe in that 25 to 40% range.
Wow.
So, you start thinking about that, especially as somebody, if they're not 20 years old, not 30 years old, and you start, losing 25, 30, 35, 40% of your muscles in your legs, your abdomen, your arms, and wow, that's not good. That's not good.
What I see all over again is the smoking thing, then it was the sugar thing, and now it's the Ozempic thing. These are all things that create big pharma solutions in the future. That's what I see
Yeah.
long term.
Yeah. Yeah, that's no doubt. I mean, if anybody's looked at the stock of Eli Lilly, since 2022, we'll say, I mean, um, it's a big money maker, no doubt. And that's what drives a lot of this. And I was mentioning about these doctors and wellness professionals that I circulate with. I don't know, but just think of the medical community in general. If there is, there's money to be made in those types of drugs. And again, nothing wrong with making money, nothing wrong with, certain drugs and pharmaceuticals that are healthy. But well, in fact, what was the term that Charlie McGinnis used in our recent Monday night? It was so phenomenal. He might be on here this morning, but what did he say? And this is somebody that's recently retired in that industry, so he has a very balanced view of the pharmaceuticals as well as the supplement industry, and I just loved his commentary and unpacking that. But I think if I'm roughly quoting him correctly, he said he feels that often they are used too early and too much. Charlie, I see you actually on there. Good morning, Charlie.
Good
Am I
morning.
quoting you roughly correctly?
That is really roughly perfectly. Yes, that's wonderful. As always, buddy. Yeah, I just think that happens in the industry all the time. Because the physicians don't have the kind of time they used to have. So therefore, they're kind of forced to do what the consumer comes in and asks them to do. Prescriber only has anywhere from 3 to 7 minutes with you. And if you come in and say, I need to be on Ozempic, and this is why, and they say, well, you're obese, and they try to have a discussion, and the patient pushes back, they'll get that prescription, depending on what you read, anywhere between 65 and 85% of the time, no matter what it is. Even when the prescribers are greatly discouraged often in certain practices to not use branded meds. And it's just a tough battle for them. And so you end up getting people on stuff that they probably shouldn't be on, but the doctor just is too busy to fight it.
Mm.
So
That's a good
well
one.
said, Charlie, because we think about onboarding a client, and, we can't just, we never experience, just snapping our fingers and a client just, chop, chop, and get going. There's an investment of time and relationship in helping that client in the Health Point program. This is very sophisticated, results, gets results. And yet, look at the time that we spend with a client and helping them and coming along, partnering with them on their journey. So, Charlie, what you're saying with the physician, averaging, literally a single handful of minutes of time that they have to dedicate to that patient that walks into their office. And what was that number? 60, it says in excess of 60-80% of the time, if that patient is asking for it in particular, they're going to get that prescription.
Exactly. The numbers, from what I've read, depending on what study you read, the big study called the Hudson study that showed it was somewhere between 60 and 85%. And that's one of these multi-center studies where they bring a bunch of studies together from other researchers. And so that's a pretty credible study. But anyways, bottom line is people, because they're tired of fighting it. They just don't have the time. They don't have the energy. And so they go ahead and say, okay, obviously if there's a real reason, like a safety hazard or somebody who comes in and is, it's more of a mindset that they don't really need Ozempic, for example, or maybe they have an actual disease to, another whole format. But if they're casually indicated, and they should be, and it could be an answer, they generally don't fight it. And you can talk to prescribers all day long and they'll talk about it because they're not happy about it either. It's just a fact of life right now, the way the system works.
Wow. Wow, that's such a powerful perspective coming from somebody like Charlie, guys. I mean, for those that didn't catch the Monday night, certainly try to get a link to that, because he unpacked that so thoroughly and wonderfully. And again, this is a guy that, he's on the inside, so to speak, and knows this. And so I would point to, as we just kind of wrap here, I think, and I see this chipmunk coming back around. I think this chipmunk is coming back for round two. He literally bit my toe. He thought it was a peanut or something, and I flinched, and he literally did like backflips in the air. He jumped up in the air. But so the squirrel and I will, or the chipmunk and I will duke it out here in a moment when we go off air. But I wanted just to point, to a couple of opportunities that kind of just come to mind as we're lingering on that topic. One is, if a new client, if a prospective client can just do 1 6-week cycle, just commit, just have a mindset of doing 1 6-week cycle. This is kind of how I think of things. Or candidly, even just their first week. We all know, as coaches and those that are in here that have done the program, the amazing change in your biology in that first week in terms of your satiety. Like, see, I think people, they're drawn to other wanting other things like an Ozempic or something like that because they think, oh my gosh, if I don't do that, then my only other choice is this choice of starvation, of deficit, of calorie counting, misery. I'm going to hate my life and so forth. And of course, when you weigh it like that, you go, well, I think I'll take the Ozempic shot or I'll take the shot. But what we know in Health Point, with those of us that have done Health Point in the past and are on lifetime maintenance, here we are sitting here this morning. I have not had breakfast yet. I have gone for a walk. I am not hangry. I am not my body, and I'm sure so many of us in this call can talk about this. My body is metabolically flexible. I am not craving carbs and sugars. I do not need a bowl of chocolate Cocoa Puffs right now to make me happy. My body is just burning the fat, and I don't feel a thing. I'm balanced. I feel good, and everything. And I think if we can get more and more clients just to experience that, and just say, look, just try it. You can stand on your head for 2 weeks. Just give this 2 weeks. Let this mechanism change in your body, and I think it will give you hope for how you can do this this time. The second thing that comes to mind is I am having increased success in partnering with other wellness providers. We talk about, Charlie's talking about prescribers. Most of them are not happy about the fact that they are, whipping out that prescription pad. A lot of these physicians and other health practitioners, I'm doing a lot of partnerships and discussions with people where they are wanting to be able to recommend their patients to a program and to a coach to be able to help them in their weight loss journey. And so obviously talk with your leader, talk with your coach, your business coach before doing that. But I'm just saying that in terms of an opportunity, if a prescriber is sitting there and they're like, oh, darn it, I don't really think that this is a best path for this person, if they can instead say, hey, I have someone that, partners with us here at our clinic, and they, have a program that is a 6-week cycle program. They might, there's a lot of wellness practitioners that would like that option. So maybe talk with some of them and set those up. Again, talk with your leadership, before. Don't take advice from me for sure. But I'm just saying I'm having a lot of success with that. And it's a really win-win. These people, these physicians, these dentists, they want to help their patients, and they would love to have another professional that they can work with on that. So that's what I'm finding anyways.
Eric,
guys,
I can kudo this real quick because I know we got to sign off, but we have a new eye doctor, and I had to get new contacts or get my refill replenished. Anyway, and the first thing when Hank goes in and he says how old he is, and the guy just about drops his drawers. He can't believe it. No meds, the whole deal. And so then we start getting a reputation in there. And so now the doctor, he's very health oriented, and so is his wife. And she said, oh, I want to learn more about this. She says, I spend buco bucks on eggs and all this kind of stuff. And she said, I want to learn more about this, and how can I help these people? And the doctor just the other day said this 20-year-old girl came in, and she was obese, and she sat in my chair. This was just before my appointment, the appointment before. She sat in my chair and she was crying because she was obese. She was taking Ozempic. Her brain was all fogged up. She was sick to her stomach. She hated it. She hated herself, and she was in tears. And he said, this is 20 years old. And then he said, right after that, I had another client, and he was like maybe 40 to 50 years old. And he had issues. I don't remember exactly what his issues were, but they were all poor quality of life because they were making poor choices. And he said, we've got to get to these people and teach them. So I'm sitting down with his wife, first of all, to start them on. I want them to just run through the program. But all that being said, I'm just saying that if you can get to know the doctor and just go in there and ask him questions in your 5 to 7 minutes with him. This happened to be a situation where we had more time. He's an old school doctor, but you're right. They are open. The right doctors are open. Even if you know doctors as friends, talk to them about it and ask questions, because very, very possibly they might be in a position where they can either be a referral or actually, you know, as this wife is going to be, I think she's going to be a coach up the road sometime. So you're absolutely spot on that, Eric.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great opportunities for us out there, guys. Great opportunities to help more and more people. Well, guys, this has been so phenomenal. I'm looking forward to duking it out with this chipmunk here. I'm hoping that he's taking Ozempic and that he's lost some muscle mass, and I'm going to kind of like win the fight here. We'll see how that goes. But everyone that joined us this morning, and certainly those that contributed, thank you so much for joining us once again for Voices of Health Point, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody next Saturday, next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
Bye.